Hello, friends. Welcome to Village Idiots for Christ. We're nuts for Jesus and just plain nuts. We're back in Isaiah. Chapter 41 is definitely going to be broken into two parts. It goes way long, all the way to 29. So we're going to cover two parts here, and then tomorrow we'll finish off. So jump right out. It's called The Helper of Israel, and it's got different sections, and I'll break it down for you. Be silent before me, you islands. Let the nations renew their strength. Let them come forward and speak. Let us meet together at the place of judgment. Who has stirred up one from the east, calling him in righteousness to his service? I went down to the footnotes. This is Cyrus, the one who conquered over Babylon. So God called him from the east to conquer over Babylon. He's the one that released the Jews to go back home after the 70 years of exile. So Cyrus was the deliverer for the Jews when he conquered Babylon. Pretty cool. That's a cool little factoid at the bottom. Didn't know that. So he's the one stirred up from the east, calling him to righteousness service. He hands nations over to him and subdues kings before him. He turns them to dust with his sword, to windblown chaff with his bow. He pursues them and moves on unscathed, by a path his feet have not traveled before. Who has done this and carried it through, calling forth the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, with the first of them, with that and with the last, I am he. And God is the one who chooses, and he chose Cyrus, and he was a pagan king, but he used him for a higher purpose, to deliver his own people. That's who God is. It's amazing the people he uses. He can use anyone for his purposes. Let's continue on. This 5 through 7 is a little different. The islands have seen it in fear. The ends of the earth tremble. They approach and come forward. Each helps the other and says to his brother, be strong. The craftsman encourages the goldsmith, and he smooths with the hammer, spurs on him who strikes the anvil. He says of the welding, it is good. He nails down the idol so it will not topple. But again, now watch this. Watch the next verse. But you, O Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, you descendants of Abraham, my friend. See, I think God here is comparing, the nations had their idols. All these pagan kings had idols. You know all about it. And he was talking about that in verse 7. But in verse 8 it says, but you, O Israel. So he's talking about how Israel had the real God, how he was their God. They didn't need no stinking idols. They had the true and the living God, the real God. And so let's continue on here. And this is beautiful. But you, O Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, you descendants of Abraham, my friend, I took you, now just listen to these words, they're just beautiful. I took you from the ends of the earth, from the farthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Man, God is always in Israel's corner. Even though from 600 BC till 1948, they were not in control of their land, 2,500 years. And yet God did not completely forsake his people. They were disciplined, they were punished, but he has never, ever forsaken his people. That's why replacement theology in this hour is nonsense. God has not replaced Israel with the church. Not at all. If it were true, then Israel would not be alive today. But to fulfill fulfill scriptures like Zechariah 12, 13, 14, dealing with Israel during the tribulation, specifically the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, not the church, but the people of Israel during the tribulation. Man, God will never forsake Abraham's natural descendants, the true Jews, those circumcised of heart and flesh. He's never going to reject them. Never. And he says, I uphold you with my righteous right hand. Don't believe that nonsense. Don't believe the church has replaced Israel. No, we have been joined to Israel. Romans 11, Romans 12. We have been engrafted into them. We're privileged to be engrafted into the apple of God's eye, the Jew. Amen. Let's continue on. Verse 11. All who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. Though you search for your enemies, you will not find them. Though you search for your enemies, you will not find them. Though those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand. See again here, he says this twice. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand. Verse 13, verse 10, I will uphold you. No, it's cool. I will uphold you with my righteous. So he mentions his righteous right hand in verse 10. And then he says, I will take hold of your right hand. Isn't that cool? Man, that's so personal. Taking hold of someone's hand is so intimate and personal. Who takes, let's see, for I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not be afraid, I will help you. Do not be afraid, O worm Jacob, O little Israel. I love that. You're just so little, but I love you. Yeah, that's what he's saying. You're so little, but I love you. You're like a little worm, but I love you. Isn't he awesome? Isn't God awesome? For I myself will help you, declares the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. See, I will make you into a threshing sledge, new and sharp with many teeth. You will thresh the mountains and crush them, and reduce the hills to chaff. You will winnow them. The wind will pick them up, and a gale will blow them away. You will rejoice in the Lord and glory in the Holy One of Israel. Man, total victory. Israel is going to have total victory. And much of the tribulation is about Israel's, we have been engrafted into Israel, but much of Israel hasn't come into Christ or Yeshua yet. Much of tribulation, the book of Revelation and then tribulation, is about the 144,000 Jewish witnesses, the two witnesses in Jerusalem. Is much about getting the Jews into Christ. So beautiful. God has not abandoned his people. You know what? I'm going to finish the whole thing here. I'm only 6 minutes in. I'm halfway through. Let's kill the whole chapter here. It's so good. The poor and needy search for water, but there is none. Their tongues are parched with thirst. But I, the Lord, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will make rivers flow on barren heights and springs within the valleys. What a good God. I will turn the desert into pools of water and parched ground into springs. I will put in the desert the cedar, the acacia, the myrtle, and the olive. See, in the desert, nothing grows. But God's going to turn the desert into such a paradise. He's going to put the cedar tree, the acacia, the myrtle, and the olive tree. I will set pines in the waste. Isn't this awesome? Listen to this. I will set pines in the wasteland, and fir and cypress, and the fir and the cypress together, so that people may see and know, may consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this, that the Holy One of Israel has created it. He's going to take a wasteland and turn it into a paradise. And it says, so that people may see and know, may consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created. This reminds me of Ezekiel 38 and 39, when all the nations, which is getting ready to happen, come down against Israel. The several nations, not all the nations, but several. And God himself is going to wipe these nations out. And they're going to know that God has done this. There'll be no nation comes to Israel's defense on that day except God himself. And he will take a firm stand for Israel and defeat all the enemies. And we will know, just like he says, that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created. God is going to take care of Israel to the very end. Let's continue on. Verse 21. Present your case, says the Lord. Set forth your argument, says Jacob's king. Bring in your idols to tell us what is going to happen. Tell us what the former things were, that we may consider them and know their final outcome, or declare to us the things to come. Tell us what the future holds, that we may know that you are gods. He's mocking here. God's doing a mockery thing here. He's mocking these people that believe in idols and stuff. Let's start over again on this, because I didn't catch that first. Yeah, watch this. It's good. And it goes. Oh, this is so good. It's verse 21 through 24. Let's read those together. Present your case, says the Lord. It's all about idolatry, and foolish people believe in idols. Present your case, says the Lord. Set forth your argument, says Jacob's king. Bring in your idols to tell us what is going to happen. Tell us what the former things were, so that we may consider them and know their final outcome, or declare to us the things to come. Tell us what the future holds, so we may know that you are gods. Do something, whether good. I love this. Do something. Just, hey, idols, do something, whether good or bad, so we may be dismayed and filled with fear. This is God. It's awesome when he mocks like this. But you are less. This is God speaking. But you are less than nothing, and your works are utterly worthless, and he who chooses you is detestable. You see the choice? You get the God of Israel and all this beautiful stuff we just read, or you get idols and you're detestable, and your works are utterly worthless. You got a choice in life. You can choose the God of Israel, or you can choose lousy idols, which profit you nothing. And he's making a beautiful comparison here. This is awesome. Let's continue on 25 through 29. This is the final verses. We're 9 minutes in. We're doing good today. It's going good. I have stirred up one from the north. Let's see, verse 25. Let's see if it tells us who the one from the north is. He's probably going to tell us that. Give me a second there. It's one from the north. No, of course not. wait a minute. 41. Oh, it doesn't even cover it. Okay. I thought he might tell us. I don't know if that was someone from the north specific. I've stirred up one from the north, and he comes, one from the rising sun, who calls on my name. He treads on rulers as if they were mortar, as if they were a potter treading the clay. Who who told of this from the beginning so we could know, or beforehand so we could say he was right? No one told of this. No one foretold it. No one heard any words from you. I was the first. Oh, listen to this. I was the first. Who was the first? God was the first. Watch this. I, or God, was the first to tell Zion, look, here they are. I gave to Jerusalem a measure of good tidings. I look, but there is no one among them to give counsel, no one to give answer when I ask them. See, they are all false. Their deeds amount to nothing. Their images are but wind and confusion. You see what he's doing here? He's saying, he's doing the contrasting. Watch this. I was the first to tell Zion. He's comparing himself to idols. Because that's why he said, okay, idols, you have to do something good or bad. Do something. Let's see that you're God. Come on, idols. Let's prove to me, prove to God you're God. That's God saying this. He said, but watch in 27. I was the first to tell Zion, look, here they are. I gave to Jerusalem a messenger of good tidings. Who did? God was the one that gave a messenger of good tidings. It was God who provided the good news to Israel. But watch this, verse 28 and 29 is the idol part. I look, but there is no one. No one among them gives counsel. He's talking about the pagans. I look, but there is no one. No one among them to give counsel, and no one to give answer when I ask them. See, they are all false. All these idols are all false. Their deeds amount to nothing. Their images are but wind and confusion. That's why we know they're images. The idols are always an image of a cow or a fish or whatever. Their images are but wind and confusion. Man, here's the choice. You get the true and the living God, or you get fake, phony, garbage idols that man made with their own hands. See, they are false. Their deeds amount to nothing. There's so many idols in the world, too. And pagan religions have the Buddhas and, all these idols that are still out there. And they're wind. Their images are wind and confusion. Their deeds amount to nothing. They're all false. There's no one among them to give. None of the idols give counsel. None of the idols give answer when I ask them. And there is no one. So this is a beautiful chapter here. It contrasts Israel's glory with God and the falsehood of idols and all of this worldly, earthly stuff. Wow, that was good. Chapter 40. I didn't think, I'm 13 minutes in. My goodness, it's going to be a short day today. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Man, God has not forsaken his people. God has not. I got a few minutes. Romans, let's go to Romans. I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to prove this to you from the scriptures. Let's see. Okay. Here it is. Chapter 11. I just want you to see this. This is from the New. I just read the Old Testament, Isaiah. We're in the New Testament. Here's the witness. I'm in 11. Let me make sure 11 is the best one. Yes. I asked, here it is. I just want you to see this from the scripture yourself. This is 11 verse 1 and following. I asked did God reject his people? By no means. I am an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin. God did not reject his people whom he foreknew. Don't you know the scripture says in a passage about Elijah, how he appealed to God against Israel? Lord, they have killed the prophets and torn down your altars. I am the only one left there trying to kill me. What was God's answer to him? I have reserved for myself 7,000 who have not bowed the knee to Baal. So too, here it is. So too at the present time there is a remnant chosen by grace, and if by grace, then it is no longer works. For if it were, grace would no longer be grace. Why? What then? What Israel sought earnestly did not obtain, but the elect did, and the others were hardened, as it written. God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes so they could not see, and ears so they could not hear it to this very day. And David says, let's jump over here, verse 11. Again, I asked, this is Israel. Again, did they stumble so far as to fall beyond recovery? Not at all. Rather, because of their transgression, the Jewish transgression of unbelief against Christ, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make Israel envious. But if their transgression, listen to this, please listen to this. But if their transgression means riches for the world and their loss means riches for the Gentile, how much greater riches will their fullness be? 1948, May the 14th, 1948, the fullness of Israel is coming forth, and we're seeing it still today. I am talking to you Gentiles. Listen to this. I am talking to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am apostle to the Gentiles. I make much of my ministry in the hope that I may somehow arouse my own people to envy and save some of them. For if their rejection is reconciliation for the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? If the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. If some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been grafted in among the others, and now share the nourishing sap from the olive root, do not boast over this. That's what replacement theology is. Do not boast over those branches. The Jewish branches that were broken off because of unbelief, to make room for the Gentile branches, we want to boast and say, oh, those Jewish branches don't matter anymore. The Jewish tree don't matter. We are Israel. No, we're not. We've been grafted into Israel. Biblical. I'm reading this. Let's keep going. If you do consider this, you do not support the root, but the roots. We do not support Israel. Israel supports us. You do not support the root, but the root supports you. Here we go. Watch this. You will say, branches were broken off so that I could be grafted in. Granted, that's true. Okay, but they were broken off because of unbelief, and you stand by faith. Do not be arrogant. Here it is. Replacement theology is total arrogance. Do not be arrogant, but be afraid. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. This is no game. Man. Consider therefore the kindness and sternness of God. Sternness to those who fell, but kindness to you, provided you continue in his kindness. Otherwise you will be cut off. If they do not persist in unbelief, the Jews, they will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. There you go. 1948, he's grafting them back in. After all, if you were cut out of an olive tree that is wild by nature and contrary to the nature were grafted into a cultivated olive tree, how much more readily would these, the natural branches, be grafted into their own tree? Man. I 16 minutes. I'm going to finish this chapter or most of this. I want you to understand this. This is from the scriptures. I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers. So you may be conceited. That's what replacement theology is. It's conceit against Israel. Israel experienced a hardening apart until the full number of Gentiles has come in. So all of Israel will be saved, as is written. The deliverer will come from Zion and will turn godlessness away from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. As far as the gospel is concerned, they are enemies on your account. But as far as election is concerned, they are loved on account of the patriarchs. That's Abraham. For God's gift and his call is irrevocable. He cannot revoke his love for Israel. It's irrevocable. Just as you were at one time disobedient to God, have now received mercy as a result of their disobedience, so they too, the Jews, have become disobedient in order that they too may now receive mercy as a result of God's mercy to you. For God has bound all men over to disobedience, so they may have mercy on them all. Romans 11 explains it all perfectly. When God restored Israel in 1948 and fulfilled Isaiah 66 verse 8 perfectly one day. Read Isaiah 66 verse 8. It's May 14th, 1948. It fulfilled it perfectly. That was God showing mercy. That was God bringing the disobedient natural children into himself, beginning the process of grafting them in. And when the full number of Gentiles has come in, and that's the tribulation period, man, God's going to be working overtime during the tribulation. I mean, Israel makes a covenant with the Antichrist. They rebuild the temple. I mean, it's all going to center around Jerusalem during the tribulation and the Middle East. And many Jews are going to come. There's many coming in now, Messianic Jews. Jonathan Kahn. I mean, I got friends that are Messianic Jews. God is gathering. God's showing mercy to the natural branches. Don't ever, ever, ever believe replacement theology. It is a lie from the pit of hell. Chapter 11 in Romans proves. Chapter 11 in Romans proves that God is not finished with Israel. The church has not replaced Israel. We have been grafted into Israel. This is one of my pet peeves in the world. I detest replacement theology. I detest the denigration of Israel. So much of it. So much anti-Semitic, so much hatred of Israel and anti-Semitism against the natural people of God. Those are the people Jesus came out of. You better be careful hating the people that Jesus came out of. Those are his natural brothers. You better be careful with that. I'm not rebuking you people. I'm talking about the people that are doing this nonsense. I'm sorry about the passion today, but I get on a high horse when it comes to we're replacing Israel. What utter and complete nonsense that is. So, sorry. Did not mean to get emotional and passionate, but man, Romans 11 tells the whole story. Man, So anyway, love you, can't get enough of you. Sorry I went nuts today. I diatribed in anger and craziness today, but I hope you enjoyed the diatribe. Those that are listening go, wow, that guy went nuts today. Those that are watching go, that guy is going nuts today. Anyway, love you. Can't get enough of you. We'll see you tomorrow on Revelation Wednesday. I don't remember what chapter. Revelation Wednesday. Ooh, it's going to be good.